Hello, everybody, and welcome to our question and answers, our monthly question and answers that Victoria and I do. So today we've got a little bit of a different one. We've not necessarily got questions from our audience, but we're going to kind of cover a little bit about what it is we do. And what I've kind of asked Victoria to do for us today is with regards to endometriosis sufferers, about the work that she does in helping women in that respect. So over to you, Victoria. Hi. Okay. Hello, how are you? and if you could just talk us through a little bit about that, of how you do help women with endometriosis in your line of work.
Absolutely, yeah, no problem. So just to clarify, in case anyone's new to watching this and doesn't know us, so I'm a clinical psychologist. So that means that I support people by thinking about their psychology as such, and thinking about our well-being, and through kind of therapeutic approaches often support people who are dealing and living with what might be considered a clinical kind of problem. So, you know, very often you find clinical psychologists in the NHS in this country, and as well as, you know, we can work privately as well. And that's how we might differ from other types of psychologists, like educational psychologists, forensic. So where you might find them in other settings, we're the people that you would see if you were dealing with a clinical kind of problem. So I do have quite a lot of experience of supporting people with persistent pain problems. So at the moment, I have an NHS post 3 days a week in a persistent pain service. So there are certainly a proportion of people that come through that service who have endometriosis. And I've personally worked with, probably can't say it's the majority of the work I do, but it certainly has cropped up probably a couple of people every year on my caseload who are living with this, either that in isolation or alongside other things, other types of pain problem. And our role really in trying to support someone with this condition is, it's multifaceted, as you can imagine. There's a huge role component that's all about education, in terms of education around the pain element particularly. So I love, Michelle, the fact that when we've worked together, like, you can educate me on some of the physiology behind endo that I'm not 100% on, your experience of supporting women from that well-being and nutrition and exercise perspective. I'd say I can come in terms of supporting people to process the difficult feelings that can come up and be stirred up with a life with a chronic pain condition, a persistent pain condition. So I might want to help somebody develop their own narrative, their own understanding, and making sense of what their experience is, both like day by day, here and now, but also maybe looking at somebody's life story, their timeline, particularly with endometriosis. I think the cases that I have, where I have worked with people, has undoubtedly always involved a timelining of journey to diagnosis, because it is a particular condition that comes with such a lot of hoops to jump through if you're going down an NHS route for diagnosis. And just, I think, you know, it takes that time, doesn't it? You have to be really thorough in excluding a lot of other things before you can go through the intensity that is the final like the surgical exploration. So as a clinical psychologist, we have the space in our sessions to be able to do that kind of work, where we can give someone the time that's needed to make sense of what they've been through, process the emotional toil that undoubtedly takes on someone to go through all this. Sometimes that in itself is therapeutic to someone. That's all, you know, that's what they need, and that's really a great step in their journey to have had that experience of making sense of things. For other people, there's like a touch further work we can do, where we might support somebody to think about how they care about themselves in the here and now, and reinforce a lot of the things is where our work, I think, would overlap. So we would reinforce everything that people can do to look after their well-being. And sometimes people come to see us because they know what they should be doing to look after their well-being, but for some reason life's not making it that straightforward. And again, we can think about that from a psychological perspective, as to, are there our own personal barriers as to why it's so hard to take the time we need for ourselves, why it's so hard to say no sometimes and look after ourselves, why it's so hard to actually recognize when we need that self-care, because as human beings we naturally we go to an autopilot place quite often. So just helping someone develop a bit more self-awareness can be useful, and identifying any traps or patterns that come up and helping people work through those so that they can then maybe make best use of all the strategies that they know that they want to have in their life that might help. And that can also, and that overlaps a lot with my private work in my relationship with food practice, where, you know, helping somebody maintain a diet that's best suited to endometriosis is a part that I can play.
Yeah, I mean, as you've quite rightly said, it is so multifaceted as a condition. But I know from my experience that pain is a massive part of it. And I've like learned techniques over time that help me with pain. So even though now, because I've got like everything in place to help me not get the pain, but when I do have flare-ups now and again, it's the pain that you need to like be thinking about and managing at that moment in time. But like I say, you know, because I've got all these things in place and I've helped other women to get things in place, it's great that there's someone like yourself as well that can deal with like what's going on psychologically, because whilst I can give like a lot of help in respect of like nutrition, exercise, and like stress management, coaching through like techniques of how to deal with stress, because stress is a massive part of like keeping the condition under wraps. When you're too stressed, then the pain is like going to be 10 times worse. So keeping the stress level in turn help with the pain. But you know, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't, you know, I can't get so in depth with a client. I mean, they can talk to me and I'm always here to listen, but like that kind of clinical training that you've had of getting to the nitty gritty of maybe some of the issues that are underlying with the condition and are probably not helping, you know, with that pain in the first place.
Yeah, there is, that's the bread and butter of what I do, really. And also, actually, just to add, you know, there's when you're saying there about kind of like techniques and things to actually manage when the pain is at its worst, you know, that comes into my work as well. For anyone with any kind of persistent pain condition, is that actually there are sometimes some things we can do that have a direct influence on the nervous system. So you know how when pain is around, any kind of pain is around, our brain gets that information from our body that there's pain here, or, well, it gets information that there's something of concern here. It interprets that information and it will send pain signals so that we experience it as pain. So when that information is going on, our threat system is activated. So it's activating the sympathetic nervous system, which of course is the fight and flight. So, you know, studies show us that people living with persistent pain are likely to have higher blood pressure, report things like chronic feelings of anxiety, even physical things like increased sweatiness and changes in heart rate and things. And that's because their sympathetic nervous system is turned on all the time. So there are things we can do to try and encourage people to engage with the opposite, the parasympathetic nervous system, calm all that down. And that's helpful both in a background way, but also in that moment when it's blooming painful, knowing that there is direct things you can do that influence your body chemistry, either through specific breathing techniques or kind of like things like applying cold, like it sounds a bit really cliche, but splashing your face with cold water, it has a direct influence on your brain, having to pay attention to that. That's gonna, it's a little bit more complicated than I can explain just now, but there are things you can do that can influence your body's physiology in the moment that can help managing pain a bit easier for a moment.
I mean, I use a lot of breathing techniques when I'm in that much pain, just like concentrating on the breath rather than concentrating on the pain, and I find that like a really good technique. And I also use like physical positions of the body. I've got a YouTube clip on that if anybody wants to look back over my YouTube channel. I've got a clip of me doing the exercises that help me when I've got a flare up. But like a real favorite one for me is like putting loads of cushions stacked up and kind of like take my body over the top of them and just rest my hands on my head on my hands on top of the cushions. And it kind of like that kind of weightless feeling of going forward really helps me. Again, like it would depend on the individual if that would work or not and where the endometriosis is. But that for me is a great position to get into. So physically getting yourself into another position that's not like gonna, you know, it's gonna change, like you say, like the physiology of your body to then like react in a different way. Or like, as I said, the breathing technique for me just are really brilliant.
Fab. So yeah, I think that covers most, but you know, it is such a, that's why I love my work in persistent pain, because there are so many ways that we can try and help someone that you wouldn't necessarily think about. And you certainly might not think, oh, that's a psychologist's role, but actually, you can.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you for covering that for us.
Problem.
So have you got anything for me today?
Yeah, I was wondering kind of what someone could expect if they were to reach out and contact you and say, you know, I'd like some help with looking at my diet and how I'm eating, because I want to, you know, make sure I'm eating the best, maybe even lose a bit of weight. What could they expect from you? What would that look like?
So basically, people will reach out and contact me, and the first thing I do is to have a consultation with that person to see if basically I'm a right fit for them and they're a right fit for me. It's a relationship at the end of the day, so we need to know that we're going to be able to work together. And what I expect from the client is complete honesty. I'm never here to judge anybody on what they do or don't eat. I'm just here to get them to the goal that they've asked me to have help with. So kind of the first thing I will do is to get them to send me a food diary of what they're already eating, and a very honest food diary of what they're already eating. And sometimes it might be that they're having kind of bloating issues. They might be having some kind of direct issue with some kind of digestion problem, or, you know, be having some ailment of like skin condition, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not a nutritional therapist, I'm a nutrition coach, and there is a massive difference. But because I'm well read in a lot of areas, sometimes it will come for me for specific help on like digestion issues. So I'll get them to do the food diary. I'll go through the food diary and pick out pinpoint things of what I think could be what, if again, it's so like different case by case, but say they're like coming to me with digestion issues and I'm seeing a pattern of like, because I get them to like have a food diary and then note down as well how they're feeling in the body and in the mind. Because if you're not sleeping, again, another thing, like your food that's not, you know, not helping you to sleep properly. So I'll pinpoint things that I'm kind of like pull out and go, have you like thought of this? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of the other? And then from what they've told me, I ask them a lot of things about what foods they like, what foods they don't like, anything that they find difficult to give up. You know, so if, for instance, you came to me and you said, oh, I'm willing to follow a plan, but I could not live without chocolate. So I factored that into the plan, that the chocolate was in with the diet as well. I don't like to call it a diet, really, a nutrition plan. Diets suggest that it is for weight loss, but a nutrition plan doesn't necessarily mean that. Nutrition plan is really for your health, first and foremost. So yeah, then I'd write them a plan, very specific to them, very tailored to the individual. And then what we would do, if they are a pure, because I do nutrition and I do personal training. So if they're just doing a nutrition plan with me, then what I will do is they will get that plan given to them. They'll go away, they'll test that plan out for about a month. And then they will check in with me if they want the accountability, check in with me once a week, see how it's going. If they're still having issues with, like, say, digestion, then we look again, we like still pinpoint, take it closer and closer to what the problem might be. And then we just have a coaching call then, if the plan is going well, if it's working, if it's doing what they wanted to achieve. We just then check in once a month. We do a coaching call just to make sure that, you know, everything's going well, and if there's anything else they need any help with. And that's basically it. It depends on how much or little help they need. Some people already have a good education on nutrition already. They just need me to give them a kick up the bum to do it. So once I've given them the plan, they're kind of on the way and fine. But a lot of other people, because sometimes it's a massive change from what they ordinarily were eating, that they might need a little more hand holding throughout it. So it might start off that they're checking in with me daily. And that's absolutely fine too. It depends on what, again, the individual needs. So it might be weekly, and then it might be monthly. The idea is for them not to need me anymore, and that's kind of the end goal, is that they go away and they've done this and it's been a lifestyle change and they've made all the adaptations that they need for the healthy lifestyle. And then I've educated them enough that they can go away and do it on their own. That's always my goal.
Yeah, and I was thinking, you know, because there's pros and cons, isn't there, of like having a plan to follow. But like if you view it as a short term, this is like an experiment to work out what suits my body best, work out what it is I can't live without, and or I don't want to live without, and work out what suits me. Then I guess like the need for it to be a structured plan kind of you'd hope would be tapered off over time as well.
And again, it's very individual things. Some clients love the fact that we've got something to follow and they love that focus. Others, it sends like the mind, like I'm working with one lady at the moment and she just cannot stick to a plan. It overwhelms her. So we're doing like little baby steps to get her to the same goal, but it's just taking a little bit longer, and that's absolutely fine too. It's not a one size fits all thing. It's a very individual thing.
Cool. Well, thank you for that.
There we go. No problem. So if anybody has any questions for either of us on the subjects we've covered today, or anything else to do with psychological help with food, or with anything to do with nutrition, exercise, or stress management is what I do as well, just either comment below or individually message one of us, and we'll be sure to cover it in the next Q&A.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.